Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're taking a look at Newage H7. I never know how to say the name. A Megamon or something like that. I don't have the box in front of me right now. But this is a legend scale figure of Megatron, the big bad of the Decepticon faction. Now, this is your first legend scale video. Once again, these figures are incredibly small representations of Transformer figures. So here are the usual suspects when it comes to scale, and you can see that the Megatron in his alt mode, which is a Walter P38, is tiny. And for Transformers specific videos, here we have the scale with Johnny Lightning 164th, 168th scale cars and Hot Wheels scale cars. And in their alt modes, here is my previous review, the Newage H27 David figure, otherwise known as Optimus Prime. And I'm saying different names for these figures because this is not an officially licensed Hasbro Takara product. It's a third-party toy, but it's a representation of Megatron. And as you can probably tell, these figures will be roughly the same size, just based off of the amount of space they both take up. So taking a closer look at Megatron in his alt mode, and I'll just say this about Megatron's design, I'm always in awe that this can transform into this. Whether it be the G1 toy, which obviously cuts some corners, to the masterpiece Megatron, which looks fantastic. Anytime a toy company can take the P38 and transform it into Megatron's design, I'm going to be impressed. So that's the base level there. I'm not going to be too harsh, but I do have some thoughts on this figure that maybe aren't so kind. So does this look like the Walter P38 German pistol? Not really. I would say it's a little chunkier in certain parts of the figure than the actual weapon is, but does it look like a toy gun? Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. So this isn't big enough in my hands to be mistaken as an actual gun, but I could think that in a child's hands, this looks pretty realistic from far away, which is why this figure comes with this orange cap already installed. So, you know, it's safe for outdoor use. So I think it's really cool that Megatron's G1 design turned into a playable pistol. Compared to the other vehicles and such, it didn't look that great, but, you know, of course, the history of Transformers is that these things, the Transformers world exists because of writers, not because of the toy line. So take that orange cap off and take a look at a few more accessories for the gun, and then we'll get into the transformation, and then we'll get into the robot mode. And just like G1 Megatron as well as Masterpiece Megatron, you have a silencer and stock attachment here. These go on pretty simple. Let's do a 0.5, and you can see a Venusaur. So we're in 0.5 view, just so you can see all this. This is the attachments that are similar to the G1 toy, something that Megatron just always has. I think it looks really cool. So final thoughts on the alt mode. I don't have any huge complaints. Maybe the figure doesn't tab together as well as it probably could, but let's be honest, the Optimus Prime transformation is way more simple than something like this that turns into a robot. So let us go ahead and get into that. I'll do a voiceover here while I speed up the transformation, and I'll let you know how long it takes me. It is always kind of stressful on camera. I always like mess up and mistransform it. So let's see how well of a job I can do. All right, so hopping in here to talk about the transformation, and I started here with the legs. They're relatively simple. They just sort of elongate, and there's some pretty cool like large pieces that pop out and like swing 180, and that's what forms Megatron's like big chunky legs. So get to take a look at the limited ankle articulation there as well. And then when I got up to the torso or upper body of the figure, I felt like I was prying apart the figure in ways that maybe didn't feel as great as I would have liked. And it's definitely, I can definitely say that transforming this figure from robot mode to alt mode is a lot more satisfying. But all in all, I would say that like the tolerances are still pretty good. The fact that that tiny gun becomes a really like nice Megatron figure is really impressive. So overall, I'm pretty happy. Alright, and here we have Newage Megatron transformed and in its robot mode, and I must say it looks really good. Don't let the camera angle deceive you. This Legend scale Megatron figure is just really screen accurate to the G1 television series. Getting a closer look at that head sculpt there, and the painted faceplate and eyes really sort of break up the monotonous of gray on the figure, and those piercing red metallic eyes are just super evil. Then you got the belly buttons of sorts on Megatron here. And again, the paint sculpt, the paint quality is great. It's just enough color to make it pop, but it still maintains the serious black and gray sort of silhouette that Megatron carries himself with. Moving down to the legs, and this is actually Newage's like 2.0 version of the waist. It used to look a little bit less cohesive, and they re-released this figure with the fixed waist, which is around the time when I picked up this figure. So I will say that this part looks maybe not as clean as the rest of the figure, and lifting up the skirt here, we can see that the articulation sort of allows for the legs to have more movement. That's obviously for the transformation, but it leaves maybe just a little bit of a gap here that is not the most visually appealing. Once again, I think that the paint quality on this figure is just fantastic, and it feels really good in hand, but there's some floppiness here. Maybe it's due to the figure's age, but I will say that I think Newage is overdue for a 2.0 design on their Megatron figure. So getting back up here, taking a look at the figure, I think the arms look pretty good, a little boxy, but that is G1, so no complaint there. But then we get to the side of the figure, which looks a little skinny, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but the legs, the chunkiness of the legs to the really thin upper body is maybe sort of not as screen accurate as you'd like, and then getting all the way to the back, and yeah, Megatron does not look so great from behind. Like I've said, there's not much they could have done. I mean, it seems like every piece and every hinge and every swivel is necessary for the transformation, but there's no doubt about it, the back of this figure does not look super appealing. All in all, like, first representation in hand, I think it looks wonderful. It's really nice to have a Megatron figure, especially at an affordable rate. Let's take Optimus Prime here and get a just full-on comparison between the two leaders. All right, and here we have Newage H27 and Newage 7 right next to each other, side by side, and first looks, I think Optimus Prime is just going to look a lot more solid and a lot more cartoon accurate from first glance. So there's no surprise to me that a later release figure looks better than the Megatron, but does it look that much better? Well, I think it's obvious that these two figures were released at different times in the company's lifetime, but for Newage to keep things this in scale with each other, I think is just wonderful. Megatron's just a tiny bit shorter, but truth be told, they're basically the same size. So for leader bots, I think they look really good. I think from the waist up, Megatron looks fantastic, and the legs as well look pretty good. It's really just this waist piece right here that maybe doesn't look as clean, maybe looks a little bulky, a little toy-like, whereas, yeah, Optimus Prime from top to bottom is just a better silhouette. Better back kibble, even though there's quite a big of backpack right there, but overall, yeah, Optimus Prime is just going to look better. But you can't deny that these two figures do look pretty good next to each other. I mean, they're meant to be. All right, so let's move on to Megatron's accessories, and we're going to get this out of the way. The stock can transform into a little the stock can transform into a little ground cannon or something. So again, this is here because other toys have had it, and Megatron's scope can go up there, and he can stand behind here and, I guess, hold on to the cannon. There's not really a place for him to hold on to it, but for pretend purposes, a play feature, great. Let's move on. All right, and just like Optimus Prime, Megatron is packaged with these fists that you need for the transformation, but he also comes with splayed out dynamic posing hands. These look pretty good. They're hollow in the palm, but the sculpt itself is pretty good, so there you go. He also comes with commander hands, these pointing hands that the leader bots typically have. So 3 pairs of hands here. You can get some array of posability and personality out of this. I think that Optimus Prime had better dynamic hands with the swivel on the wrist, so you could do just a little bit more there, but yeah, Megatron can bark commands, and what more can you really ask for? Alright, and getting back to his fists, and other accessories that Megatron comes with are Soundwave? No, this isn't Soundwave. I believe this is the Prime Killer, the weapon that Megatron picks up in the 84 movie that ultimately kills Optimus Prime. I believe that's what this is. I don't think that this is Soundwave. Soundwave looks a little bit different. So let's say his arm cannon got blown off, which just attaches there, so there's some parts forming on the figure, but nothing crazy. And Megatron is ready to take out Optimus Prime once and for all. So, nice little accessory. I like the purple color. It really breaks up sort of the gray blob that is Megatron at times. So, yeah, nice little accessory here. Fits into the hand perfect. Megatron also comes with this Energon mace. It looks pretty cool. There is no articulation on this. It is in a fixed purple translucent plastic. So you can recreate Megatron and Prime fighting each other on the bridge. I think it looks really good, you know? Have Megatron in a dynamic pose here. We'll get into posability later. But in short, I don't think that looks half bad. So again, a fun little accessory for Megatron. Getting down to the end of it, and Megatron comes with this key. It can fit in the hand like that, or it can fit into the arm itself like this. So I'm not sure which one's correct. To be honest, I don't really remember what this is from. I can put it up on the screen if I do the research, but yeah. Nice little gold painted key. And nothing much more to say about that. I like the sculpt. Paint quality, again, is fantastic for Newage. And Megatron's final and probably most important accessory is an alternate faceplate where he is truly maniacal and truly evil. And replacing this is pretty easy. I bet you couldn't even tell that this faceplate came off. That's how seamless it is in the sculpt. So taking that off from below and getting the new one on, and now all of a sudden this Megatron comes to life. I can hear the voice from the 84 cartoon, the laugh, and yeah, I think this really is a nice cherry on top of an already pretty good figure. So let's get into posability, and then I'll give final thoughts, and then I'll see you on your way. Alright, let's get into posability and start with the head and go down. So the head is on a ball joint, so it can swivel all the way around. It can look up that far and down that far, and has just a little bit of a tilt, but just enough to get some personality in there. So appreciate that. The arms can rotate out that far and rotate all the way around. There is a elbow swivel, and there's about a 90-degree bend at the arms. Nothing fantastic, but the full range of articulation pretty much gets you into whatever pose you need. And finally, the hands are on swivels and can do. Now, because Megatron has an asymmetrical design, both arms are just a little bit different, but the articulation is practically the same, which, like, taking into consideration that the arms make up different parts of the gun, I think that is pretty impressive. This figure is being carried, I think, by its engineering and then just some really, like, worthwhile accessories. Getting down to the chest, there is a full rotation at the waist. I guess there is a bit of an ab crunch, not much of a back crunch, but an ab crunch here for the transformation. So you can pull that skirt down and you have a little bit more. Nothing crazy, though. Let's get the arms out of the way. So as I was saying earlier, the skirt is just a little bulky. It can be cleaned up, but yeah, it's probably the weakest part of the figure. So legs can move out really far, and you're starting to see the age of this figure. So the tolerances there aren't great, but it can get out that far. This figure can kick up pretty far, and it holds that pose pretty well. It can kick back real far. Love that. There is a double jointed bend at the knee. There's a thigh swivel there that you can see. And then there is a slight ankle pivot. And then nothing in regards to toe crunch. So you will see that this figure is kind of irritating to mess with, just because when you're trying to set it on the ground, any little movement can set the hips out of array and the legs start to fumble in on each other. So it is possible. I think I took some pretty cool photos, but overall the articulation, I think, suffers because of the transformation, and I would love to see what Newage can do about that now in 2025. But for now, as their only representation of Megatron from this company, I do think that it is pretty damn cool. All right, so all in all, I like this figure, but I do not like it as much as the Optimus Prime figure. With that being said, the transformation is pretty excellent. I know it took a little bit of time on camera, but I assure you it is pretty intuitive and smart the way it goes together. You're not forcing anything, so the tolerances are really good. The accessories are mild, I would say, but give you pretty much everything you'd need to make a pretty interesting and compelling figure. And that head sculpt really is carrying right now. So I like this figure. I think it's a great addition to a Legend scale collection. I know there is that Magic Square figure that I do have, but truthfully, I prefer the proportions on this guy. G1 Megatron is pretty slim, and I like it that way. So with all that being said, I don't think I gave a rating to Optimus Prime, but I would give that figure a solid 8 out of 10, and this one's coming in at a solid 7 out of 10. So thank you so much for watching. Appreciate your patience. Hope you're having a nice day. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.